Hey friends, so I'm here in Whistler, British Columbia with Craig McKenzie, who's been a Sothebys agent here for a number of years and also a resident of Whistler for 40 plus years, you mentioned.
Yes.
So we're going to talk to him here today about what's happening in the real estate market and what the best opportunities might be at present.
That's great.
So first of all, I know there's different types of ownership at Whistler, and it affects how you use the home and how you can rent the home or not rent the home. So you can tell us a little bit about the various phases of real estate in Whistler.
So when Whistler was, the new village was started up, there were lots of trips made to Vail because that was the premier single purpose built resort at the time. And they wanted to understand what worked well and what didn't work well. And the thing they observed was that on Sunday night, the lights went off. Friday night, the lights went back on. And so for businesses, it didn't work. No customers in the middle of the week. So they wanted to come up with a system that made beds available for rent by the public. And so the businesses would have people to sell clothes to, sell meals and drinks to. So they came up with some covenants. We have a phase 1 and phase 2 covenant. Both are predominantly in the village area. There are some phase 1 properties on Blueberry Hill and also at Creekside. So phase 2 allows 56 days a year personal use, and of that 28's in the summer, 28's in the winter, and you pre-book about 6 months in advance for the use so that the hotel property can do the best job of renting out the rooms on your behalf.
Right, and these properties are fully outfitted like a hotel. You have full
Absolutely.
access to all the hotel facilities. You don't have to buy a pillow, a sheet,
No.
a coffee cup, nothing.
You have,
right?
as an owner, the only charge you have to pay in-house is for cleaning at the end.
Housekeeping.
And
Okay.
and the house, you can't get a housekeeper in Whistler for the rates that they typically charge. It's very
Right.
extremely low.
Okay, and that's phase
2.
phase 2. Okay,
So if it has a name brand hotel, the Four Seasons, the Pan Pacific,
right.
for example, the Delta or the Western are the main, the big obvious ones. It's a
Yes.
phase 2.
Okay. Good. So tell us about phase 1 now.
So phase 1 was, they recognized they had to spread the market out to make compatible for people. So phase 1, the covenant says, in essence, please, when you're not using it, make it available for rent. But the owner has primary use. They can use it as much or as little as they want. There is no bedroom police checking to make sure that you're renting when you're not in house. And the covenant doesn't take into account rate. So if you don't want to rent it, $5,000 a night, and you're going to be clear. And if somebody wants to pay you $5,000 a night, you're probably more than happy to take it.
Right, so phase 1 really has the most flexibility of
That's
all
right.
housing types at Whistler.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's completely legal to Airbnb in those units. In the phase 2 properties, typically the management agreement does not allow you to rent independently of the hotel operator.
Right. Okay. So I will admit I did a little bit of research on Whistler properties yesterday evening. I looked at every single home that's currently for sale.
Yep.
And I also looked at everything that's sold since September.
Yep.
So tell me if I'm wrong, but for a phase, it seems like the entry level price for a phase 1 property where you have the complete opportunity to either live there full time or rent it part time or rent it on Airbnb is around $650 to $700 for a small bachelor 1 bedroom, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, typically 1 bedrooms in the village are going around $1 million.
$1 million. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And part of it is just there aren't a lot of them on the market these days for very
Okay.
long, and so it is one part of the market that is moving relatively quickly.
Right, because it's somewhat affordable.
Yeah.
First-time buyers could decide to move up to Whistler and put their 10% down.
Yeah.
So anything under $1 million is within that range and therefore attractive.
Yes.
Okay. And did you find during COVID that things just went bananas here?
Yes, it was. We were seeing time on market that we've never seen before. It was, they're coming on and they're going within a couple of weeks. I mean, as a resort area, our time on market is longer than traditional markets anyway.
Okay.
Because there's less pressure on a seller. and sort of they're moving in the direction of more traditional market right now, longer time on the
Right,
market.
right. Well, I think there's just that trend that people can work remotely, and why not
Absolutely.
move to Whistler if you have the choice to work remotely and just commute to Vancouver or
Yeah.
fly to LA or wherever it is that you have your headquarters, right?
Yeah, and we actually saw, there were people in Vancouver who didn't own in Vancouver,
Mm-hmm.
who bought here first, and they continue to rent in Vancouver.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And let's talk about detached properties now. Like this is very interesting to me. My dad actually had a cabin that he built up here back in the 70s, and he ended up selling it before the village went in. But we had our fun at Mount Baker. We ended up getting a place up there. But tell us about the detached market. I know there's quite a range. You've got some of the original 1970s and 1980s cabins that seem to be sort of in that 1.6 to 2.2 million range, depending on the level of renovation or if it's been upkept.
Right.
The quality of the home, up to 20 million plus for some of the luxury high-end detached homes here at Whistler.
That's right.
So tell us about which detached market, for example, can you rent out your home on Airbnb if you buy a detached home up here?
There are a few small locales around the Nicholas Golf Course.
Yes.
On Green Lake. There is a large section of homes there where you can nightly rent.
Okay.
And indeed, some of those homes were originally built. Obviously, when you go in them, just the number of bedrooms in them, they were built aimed at that market. But for the most part, no, you can't nightly rent. And the city is quite aggressive about making sure you can't rent, as are the neighbors.
Oh, okay. And what do the detached homes in the Nicholas North region of where the golf course is, where you can do the nightly rental, what's the starting range for a detached house in that area?
You might find something at 4, but probably high 4s and on up.
Okay, 4 million plus. Okay, there we go. So
but
tell
they're
us.
also newer home, like you talked about the market in some of the older suburbs with those older style, the family built homes. The market in Nicholas North, they're roughly 20 years old.
Right.
So you're definitely dealing with a newer home than you are in the rest of the suburbs.
Right. So the rest of the suburbs where you've got the 70s and 80s homes, the detached, the structure itself is basically fully depreciated.
Yes.
And you're buying mostly the land, because what I'm seeing for some of these 1970s and 80s homes, the realtors are selling them as build your dream home at Whistler.
Right.
They're selling them as a building lot.
Right. And they're usable, that for the most part, they're usable for a couple of years. That you wouldn't want to, you might do a little bit of something, new appliances or something, but you're just waiting time it takes to get through a building permit and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. Or it's some of those homes. They're getting to the point where everything needs to be stripped out and redone. You've got old pipes, you've got maybe some cedar, some wood that's rotting, and either you replace it all and say respect the heritage of whatever that era was, or you just start over and build something that's more than 2,000 square feet. Because some of those cabins are not that large either. Some of the old timer cabins, they're anywhere probably from like 1,000 square feet up to maybe 3,000 square feet.
And way back then, one bathroom was enough for the whole house.
That's right. Yes.
So yeah, they're just definitely a lack of amenities. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And small.
Okay, interesting. So tell us about so those cabins, that the older cabins that were say built from the 1970 to say up to 1990.
Yeah.
Are those primarily owned by individual families, groups of families, groups of friends that maybe have a 25% share each, or are they full-time residents of Whistler, or a combination of all?
So the market has changed over time, and we're seeing less partnerships among friends or even within family. It's more, I think with the rise of all the television shows about real estate, a lot of the issues around those kinds of things have been dramatized.
Okay.
And so we're not seeing as many people prepared to
go into
do
partnerships.
that.
Okay.
So in the Whistler market, I would say that 25% of the market is roughly locals.
Okay, 25% local.
Yeah, and around 60% plus out of Vancouver.
Okay.
And then the balance from the rest of Canada and the rest of the world.
Internationally.
Yeah.
So tell me, are there? I noticed that quite a few of the executive high-end homes that are 10, 20 million in that
Yep.
range. Of course, they're owned by corporations.
Not all,
Not all of them.
Not all of them. It's going out with the change in the rules.
Right.
I mean, there were two reasons to put them in a corporation. One was to hide the ownership, and then the other was around tax issues and
Or rentals.
from a non-resident. Yeah.
Or they were renting it, but now they don't have the ability to rent
Right.
for less than 1 month,
Right.
like less than 30 days. So it's no longer a corporate rental property or anything like that.
There are people trying to go underground with that, but the city is quite aggressive.
Okay. Interesting. So are those executive homes, are they occupied full time, 25% of the time, visited once a year? What do you see as the trend?
I mean, it's a little bit of everything.
I'm
There's
sure,
definitely some that are just used for a few weeks a year.
Right.
There's another group of people that come for the season, whichever one it is. I mean, there's more people who like just summer now than there used to be. It was all about winter, and now particularly from the southern U.S., there's a market of people who want to escape the heat,
Right.
and
Okay.
so the summer up here is lovely.
Okay. Wonderful. So tell us, having been a resident of Whistler for over 40 years, how have you seen it grow over the years?
Well, I mean, back in the 70s, they decided they wanted to become a tourist destination, and it's been a successful transition. I mean, not everybody in the 70s wanted to see that change.
Right. There's a whole different culture up here at Whistler back then.
Yeah. But I mean, over time, it's a successful ski resort or successful resort. I mean, skiing obviously is the biggest driver, but the number of families now coming here in the summer with the biking and the lakes, it's a huge change.
Right. And I do know quite a few people who've actually decided just to move up here with their families because they have, they've one high school.
Right.
And how many elementary schools?
There's two. Well, there's actually 4 elementaries.
Okay.
There's a École Passerelle, which is full French.
Right.
There is a bilingual, and then those 2 are part of another. There's a combined school,
Okay. So a French
and
immersion.
then the Waldorf.
So a Waldorf, a Francophone, and a French immersion, basically.
And then 2
And then regular English.
2 English,
2 regular English.
and then the
Interesting.
high school. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of full-time residents, I know you said it's about 25% of the people at Whistler are full-time residents, but what would the population be of the full-time residents approximately?
So I think the census just came in at around 13 or 14,000.
Okay,
So that's a snapshot in the spring
okay,
when a lot of the annual workers have left.
okay.
So yeah,
Okay, so that's a little bit bigger than the city of Mission.
Yep.
Mission's about 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And that would be a little smaller than Port Moody, because Port Moody's about 20,000 people.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
to give you a general sense of the size of the
right.
population up here.
But then on between Christmas and New Year is the busiest time on the ski hill.
Right.
So you would get between 25 and 30,000 skiers on the mountain on those days.
Wow.
So I mean the full-time population is quite very often dwarfed by the visitor population.
Right. Okay. So, as we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to tell us about Whistler?
I think it's a great place to own. It's very it's obviously moved in terms of its affordability, but for families with children, I don't think there's a better place on the planet. Every sport, every activity that you want to do, there are absolutely amazing people that can help them do that, and it's just a great place. You're an hour and a bit from Vancouver. It's a great place to live.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Again, this is Craig McKenzie from Sothebys International Realty Canada in Whistler. So if you have any questions about the Whistler market, feel free to contact Craig directly or myself, and we will get you connected up here.
Thank you.